Today I'm excited to check out the Astrhori 25mm F2.8 2 to 5 times extreme macro photography lens. This is for Sony full frame mirrorless cameras, but it's probably available for your camera mount as well. Check it out, guys. This is a fantastic budget entry-level lens into the amazing world of macro and extreme macro photography. But just a forewarning here that this thing is not for beginners. I recommend you watch this video just to kind of see why. But this lens is going to require a learning curve, and for best results, you're going to want to invest in some additional gear. If you're just jumping into macro photography, I recommend that you stick to something like a 1:1 magnification, maybe even with autofocus. That's going to make your life a lot easier. But this is a fully manual lens, and it does have a fixed working distance. So it's going to be tedious, it's going to be annoying, it's going to be terrible, but the results are just awesome. This is a really cool lens, and if you do put the time in, man, some of the results are just gonna blow you away. Here's some of my favorite shots from this lens to date. Let me know what you think down in the comments.
See if you can guess what some of these things are.
It's no secret that I love macro photography, and extreme macro photography, again, although it can be just really frustrating at times, can be really rewarding. I love shooting bugs, I love shooting foods and textures, and this thing at an entry-level price point can do just that. This is really a really unique and cool lens that I'm excited to share with you, because this is actually accessible to a lot of people because of the price. Now let's dive in and talk about the performance of this lens. There's a few things to note here. Now at 2 times magnification, you're gonna get your best contrast and you're gonna get your best sharpness. Maybe stopping down a little bit might improve it, but once you get past about f8 or so, you're gonna notice a big degradation. Now, talking about the magnification, it starts at 2, which is really nice, but as you get into your magnification range, 3, 4, 5, diffraction is gonna kick in, and it's really gonna make your image quality suffer, unfortunately. That's just the physics of these lenses. There's really no getting around it. Just be aware that if you're not a great editor, you're gonna notice some degradation, whether you stop down or you pump that magnification up. So, having said that, there's also the depth of field to consider. This lens is going to have an extraordinarily shallow depth of field. Throw that into crop mode for 7.5 times magnification. That's crazy. So do be aware that, again, this is going to be a really tedious, really frustrating, but definitely rewarding lens to use. And yes, it's fully manual with a fixed working distance. So where your subject is, you're going to have to either move your subject or this lens and your camera. So I definitely recommend at the very minimum you have a manual slider. Now this is a manual slider. I think you can pick one up for about 50 bucks. I'll put all the links in the description for you. But if you are shooting macro photography or if you're new to it, this is gonna be something that I definitely recommend. It's cost saving, and you're gonna be able to focus stack your subjects and get much better results than having a very shallow depth of field. If that's the look you're going for, it can be great, but there's no replacement for stacking your macro photos. It just looks so much better. Now with this lens here today, here's a few examples shot at this handheld and then using a macro slider and stacking those images. Look at the difference. Now this can take quite a while to learn. It's more expensive to invest in these things, and the results are, well, they're a lot better. If you're getting serious about macro photography and want the best results, I recommend you look at an electronic slider like this one from Macro. Now this is a really cool macro slider or rail that you can control with your smartphone through Bluetooth, and this is really gonna let you take full control over your images. I do have a full in-depth review and video on that thing. Check it out. Again, it's gonna take you a little bit of time to learn, and it's gonna cost you a little bit to invest in, but for me, for ultra macro, there's really no replacement, and I could fully recommend this product to you. If you're just starting out, the manual rail will serve you just fine. It's really gonna be the difference between stacking a few photos and stacking a few hundred photos. If you're there, you probably know you're there, but if you're not, maybe you don't need to invest a bunch in stuff you don't need. Now it's worth noting that this lens does have a competitor, probably more well known at this point. It's the Laowa 25mm F2.8, 2.5 to 5 times macro magnification here. Now this one is more expensive. It does have a little bit better optical quality, and there's a few pros and cons to each. So just note that if you are checking this thing out, it's gonna be a lot more expensive. You're gonna get a little bit better results for the most part, but if you are just gonna jump in and check this out for the first time, or you wanna dive into macro, being a budget option, this thing is gonna open the door to so many people, and I'm really excited about that. Again, I got a bunch of macro videos if you are interested in a certain aspect of macro. I'll link a few up here if you're interested.
And touching on the build, it's actually pretty decent. It feels good in the hand with a metal construction. It's not too heavy at just over a pound, and it measures about 4 inches unextended and just under 7 fully extended. It does have the magnification ratios right on the side of the lens, as you can see, and it does have very subtle hard stops on each. On the very front of the lens, you've got your tiny aperture ring, also with hard stops. It might just have the smallest front element you've ever seen and will struggle to gather light. On the back it does have a metal mount, but does seem to be lacking any sort of weather sealing gasket, so I would be a little bit careful in the rain and whatnot. You won't find any bells or whistles or buttons or switches or anything on this lens. It's pretty darn bare bones, but does get the job done. Overall it's very comparable to the Laowa, but in terms of build I'd say it's just a small step down.
So would I recommend this lens to you? Absolutely. I think for the price, this is a great way to get your foot in the door and experiment with extreme macro photography. Again, I'd recommend something like a macro rail, either a manual or a fully electronic version, and I'd recommend some decent lights. You don't have to go crazy and go with a big flash setup or anything like that, but I'd recommend you getting at least a few lights that you can kind of control and dial in the way you want it. If money's not an issue, check out this Adaptalux lighting setup that you can fully customize your setup with all these crazy little arms. I do have a review on this thing, so check that out if you're interested as well. So let's leave it at that, guys. If you have any questions about this lens or if you want to see more specifics, let me know down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching. If you did want to pick it up, I will drop affiliate links down below. And like always, make mistakes, be yourself, and get out there and take some more pictures. See you next time.